Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Chaplain Nikki Coleman. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Major John Ferguson Chambers. John Chambers was born on the 9th of September 1894 to Alfred and Mary Ann Chambers of Brisbane. John was educated at Tudor House Preparatory School in the New South Wales town of Moss Vale and later Sydney Grammar School, before going to Melbourne University to study medicine. He graduated in 1917 with a Bachelor of Medicine degree. John Chambers enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in April 1918. Given the rank of captain in the Australian Army Medical Corps, he served as resident medical officer in Perth Public Hospital. He left Sydney for active service overseas 2 days before the armistice was signed in November 1918 and arrived in Egypt on the 11th of December. Although the war was over, it would be more than a year before the last of the Australian Imperial Force returned home. Chambers remained overseas, dealing with wounded patients in hospital, as well as new cases of sickness and injury. However, most of his time in Egypt was spent being unwell himself. In September 1919, Chambers went to England, where he visited several hospitals in the United Kingdom to gain further experience through the Inter-Allied Fellowship of Medicine postgraduate scheme. He became a member of the Royal College of Practitioners and on returning to Australia earned his MD in Melbourne in 1925. On the 3rd of September 1924, John Chambers married Helen Craig at St Stephen's Church in Sydney. They would go on to have 2 sons. Dr Chambers took on a practice in Toorak Road, Melbourne, and contributed a number of authoritative papers to scientific journals. John Chambers enlisted for active service a second time in November 1940 and was again accepted for active service in the Australian Army Medical Corps. He left Australia in late December 1940 and in early February arrived in the Middle East. Chambers was sent to Tobruk, a vital deep water port in Libya that had recently been liberated from Italian control. However, its strategic importance was such that Germans advanced to take control of the occupied town in April, not long after Chambers' arrival. Tobruk and its garrison of around 14,000 men would be besieged for 8 months. Major Chambers did not live through this siege. On the 10th of April 1941, enemy aircraft dive-bombed clearly marked hospital tents in Tobruk. 35 medical staff and patients were killed or wounded in the attack, including 2 doctors, Major John Chambers and Major Zelman Schwartz. John Chambers was buried in the Tobruk War Cemetery, where his remains lie today. His epitaph, taken from the Ubat of Omar Khayyam, reads, "The quarrel of the universe let be, make game of that which makes as much of thee." He was 46 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died serving during the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Major John Ferguson Chambers, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.